Hey everybody. Tonight was a 5 mile tempo run. As I said in one of my earlier vlogs, this is one of my favorite nights. The challenge of the tempo, the ability to kind of run at a faster pace and really feel uncomfortable, it's actually a very enjoyable thing. Versus kind of restricting yourself all the time to zone 2, a slower pace, slowly and steadily building that foundation of fitness. It's kind of the point in the week when I know I get to challenge myself pretty significantly to make it through something. And it's also this measurement tool that gets to say, hey, like, this is getting easier or it's getting harder. Thankfully, most of the time, the Wednesday runs seem to be improving. I did miss last week because I had a little bit of a personal issue. And other than that, though, I generally make pretty much every run. I tend to run outside, and it was raining all day, but thankfully it kind of stopped. Unfortunately, well, I guess just for the fact of the matter, I did get home kind of late, right before 8. Not terribly late, kind of late for me. I'm an old guy, I guess. And, you know, like if I really sat down to think about it, I probably didn't want to run, if I'm being fully honest, right? There's plenty of times where I don't want to run, but at this point, it's just become what I do. It's what happens on Wednesday nights. It's a routine, and either I'm incredibly comfortable with routines or I've got to a point where this is just my life, right? It's a part of how I identify. And on Wednesday nights, I do tempo runs or I do a challenging run. I do something that challenges me. And I would say that happens 90%, 95% of the time. I guess I don't exactly know the best way to measure that. I mean, in the past, I guess I haven't always been doing tempo runs. Really, I started running about a year ago, in truth, about 3 miles. Talked about that before. And before that, I really started with just walking. And so really one of the biggest things that I wanted to talk about was commitment and consistency, right? Would I say that I would say I've made some definite improvements and gained a lot of ground in the last year. I cut probably about 3 minutes per mile off my easy running pace, and I can definitely push a lot harder. I'm really looking forward to the first race of the year because I think it's going to go pretty well. I have high confidence as long as I don't injure myself or anything before. So it's gone very well. Sorry, my cat's hitting the tripod because she's sassy like that. But commitment and consistency. Whatever you want to do, I think it should be a part of nearly every day in some way. Now with running, I don't run every day just because I'm balancing that, but I do pursue improving my physical fitness and improving my ability to perform in these races, right? But it could be riding, it could be these videos, it could be better nutrition, right? Commitments every day. And what I would say is I think a lot of times when we go to start something or in typical human behavior, like I've done it a bunch in the past, I see a lot of people do it, is we start like super strong, super heavy, super challenging right out the gate. And I think it's a big mistake because it doesn't contribute to consistency. Excuse me. Come on, guys. So it just becomes challenging, right? You know, if you go do your first exercise or you spend an hour or two doing something the first night you try it or the first day you try it, and then it takes some of that initial enthusiasm, or maybe you're sore, or maybe it's hard to get back into it. There's a lot of factors that can play into it, right? But what I recommend, what's worked best for me in the past 2 years, something that I've been able to stick with and really keep moving and keep improving over the last really 18 months for sure, right? It's not permanent, but it's been the most successful I've ever been in pursuing fitness and in pursuing some goals, is to start with a really achievable goal, a really achievable daily goal. It might not even be challenging so at the start. And the idea would be is that the challenge initially is to stick with it, is to be consistent, is to make it achievable regularly. So that way you can build that habit and you can build that into your routine. And in essence, is something I plan to talk about more, is incorporate it into a part of your identity and who you are. Identity is a really powerful concept that a couple different people talk about, smarter than me probably, or more experienced than me. But I think it's very powerful to incorporate it as a part of your identity and build a really strong habit that becomes this thing that when you don't do it, you feel weird. And so now, most of the time, the vast majority of the time, I don't even think about what I'm going to do. I just do it. At the end of the day, if I sat down and thought about it before I did it every time, I bet I would do it far less. I would miss more opportunities. I would miss more of the chances to do it, or I wouldn't seize the opportunity as much, right? I would skip runs. I would skip workouts. I would skip going to the gym. I would probably eat shittier. I would probably not pursue any of the things that I'm really trying to make growth in and progress towards. And so that's my biggest recommendation. Start super easy. Start with something super achievable. I mean, I think back then I probably started with 6,000 steps. It's where I started, right? I ran 5 miles tonight, but that's not where I started. That's not even where I was 6 months in. Right? So I started with 6,000 steps, a month or two in. I bumped to like 8, then I went to 10, and I probably went to 12 for a little while, at least, just walking. Then I incorporated weightlifting, I incorporated running a couple times a week. When I started running, I stopped focusing so much on the walking every day, which I'm really balancing that out and trying to consider if I want to incorporate that back in, just because low intensity, steady state, somebody's really caught my ear on that. I really want to pursue that again, particularly for fat loss, as I want to shed about 5-10 pounds probably of fat, keep as much muscle as I can, lean out really. So make consistency the first goal. Consistently being able to do something for 30 days or for 60 days or for 3 to 4 days a week for 12 weeks, right? Start with something incredibly achievable. You can add intensity, you can add volume later. But if you add intensity or volume or both right away, and then you go for a week or you go for 2 times and then you skip for 10 days, the consistency is the best part, the compounding part, and making it, incorporating in a thing where that if you do it for 12 months, you will see significant improvement versus you do it for a month and you don't do it for 2 months. You do it for a month and you don't do it for 2 months. So if you struggle with that, like I have in the past, that's my recommendation. It's worked for me. I've been pretty consistent. I plan on continuing to be consistent. And even if I change anything else, I will definitely, as I incorporate new things, every one I incorporate, I make the goal. I think about what I really want to do and I chop it down by about 25, 30, sometimes 40%. Usually not in half, but sometimes. Just so I know that I can do it, and I can build some confidence in it, and I can build some commitment, build some consistency, and then I just continue to do it. And I turn up the dial later. You know, if you can see results, even just with that effort, go until you stop seeing results, and then dial it up, right? So this is applying lessons just from a couple different areas in a couple other areas. And really, it's worked every time in pretty much every sense. So I think it's a system that is pretty reliable, and I recommend you give it a shot. Anyways, thanks for checking it out.